there was someone who reached out to me from the community industry. I will not name names. And they basically said to my face that I was going to fail. And the reason they told me I was going to fail was because senior community professionals are hard to wrangle, and that I was going to get a job and I was not going to have the time to focus on it, because I had said, I'm never going to charge for this community. I think like access to information should be free. And I don't want to like have someone not be able to come into the community because they can't afford to. Not only was I like highly aware that I wanted this to be sustainable from the start, but if you tell me I can't do something, I will show you I can do it.
Today, I am thrilled to have Nikki Thibodeau with us. Nikki is the Senior Manager of Community and Customer Advocacy at Calix. Previously, she worked at various roles, rising through the ranks of the community team at Shopify. She is also the founder and head of community at Community, where she is building a safe space for senior community professionals to grow together. Thanks for joining me, Nikki.
Thank you so much. It's fun to hear your intro from spoken by other people.
I hope I did justice to our intro.
Absolutely. Yeah, it was very good.
This episode is sponsored by Curated Connections, a simple matchmaking tool with an easy to justify pricing that helps you increase engagement in your community. Check it out by visiting curatedconnections.io or go to the link in the show notes below.
So Nikki, why don't we get started talking about something that you mentioned on our last call, which is that you said that your ability to bring people together was an unidentified superpower of yours. What does that mean?
Yeah, I realized back when I was in Shopify and I was working both in community and I was also running our women's ERG, which is an employee resource group. And what I really noticed about the skills that I was using in both, like this thing off the side of my desk and the thing that's paying my bills, was that it had an underlying similar skill set needed. And that was to bring people together. And so the way I was able to articulate that was actually through the Women's ERG. One of our topic sessions was about understanding your strengths. And I was like, I should probably figure this out before I run this session. And so I sat down and I journaled and I figured out what are the skills I need for the role that I have. And then what are the ones that I absolutely think I thrive at. And bringing people together is absolutely one of them.
What does that look like? Like at that point, like when you were journaling, can you take us through your head? Like what was going through your head and how did you, actually have the confidence to say that, yeah, this is my superpower. This is what I am really good at.
That's actually such a great question. And I think because when you get to a point where you have the language to say it, and then you've tested it with people to make sure that they agree. And then I've been saying this about myself for years now. And so I kind of forgot about what it was like when I first did it. It's really difficult, I think, to pick apart the things that you're really good at. And so what I was doing was I actually wrote down my job description and pulled apart what skills are needed to do those jobs, because I knew I could tell you with confidence I was doing my job correctly. I felt good about that. My boss agreed. And so I was like, okay, what skills are necessary for this? And so when I was journaling, it was that. And then when I got to a place where I thought I had the right answer of what are the top 3 skills that I'm really good at? I floated them around to colleagues. And so I'd be like, hey, do you agree with this? Or which of these 3 do you think I'm best at? And so that way you get a little bit of peer feedback. And then you start testing it out, find ways to say that hey, I've been doing some journaling lately, and I think I've identified that, bringing people together is my superpower. When I first said that, it sounded so hilarious to me, like my superpower. But it really is. And so like now it's just part of my vocabulary that bringing people together is my superpower.
I like that. I like how the self-reflection process of yours, right? About how you discovered the superpower for yourself, and then you tested it with other people and validated yourself. So have you also thought about like this might be a little self-indulgent, but why do you have the superpower? Like, what makes you different from other people? That gives you the superpower.
Interesting. We're getting vulnerable immediately. So growing up, I wasn't popular. And some would say that I was like even like the whatever the opposite of popular is. But when I got into high school, I feel like I cracked the code a little bit about like how I could, not that I could be popular, but I could be accepted across the board. And so I ended up being able to be this chameleon of sorts. But what happened in that is that I lost myself a little bit, because in order to like be palatable to everyone, I couldn't be exactly who I was. And so, but one of the things that I really enjoyed were the moments where I got to connect the people who wouldn't like naturally talk to each other. And I didn't necessarily at the time, like in high school, I wasn't like, oh, this is a thing I can do. Like that wasn't, I wasn't aware of it. I just kind of did it. But when I was reflecting back on my high school experience and like, I didn't want to go to post-secondary education. It's just like education or like the school system to me is like not for me. And so when you don't have like some sort of career path laid out in front of you, then you kind of have to make it up. And then you have to be really extra good at it, because you can't say to a future employer, oh, I'm really well versed in business because I went to school. You have to like ask people to help you or like to share things with you. So like businesses, like I had friends who had businesses and I'd be like, let me help you in your business. I like anything. I just want to like see the insides, like share with me your struggles. And so that's when I started to identify like the things that I liked doing. And then I realized, oh, this is something I'm good at.
Yeah. I love this. Thank you so much for being vulnerable here with me.
Mm-hmm. I would have gotten there eventually, but didn't know we'd get there immediately.
That's how I like to start. Right. Let's talk about your work at Calix and how it allows you to execute the superpower today.
A lot of times when you get into leadership, you have less opportunity to like bring people together in the same way. So the job focus changes, or like the way in which you utilize that superpower will change. So because my superpower is bringing people together, it used to be really literal. Like I'd bring people together, have events, help them grow, etc. Like I would be the one facilitating that interaction. Whereas now I'm not. There's like a whole team at Calix who does virtual engagements, and they're amazing. And so I don't have any like webinars I run, or like don't do that anymore. And I'm also not the community manager on the online forum. Like I have a wonderful team I have someone on the team who is a community moderator. I have someone on the team who is proactive and manages the community. And so the way that I bring people together has to change as you grow within your career. And so for me, it's like, okay, how can I make a community strategy that helps bring people together? And how can I empower my direct reports to bring people together? And so the scope of it changes, or like the actual things you do change. But I think that like it can come with you, like that skill that is your superpower will be able to translate onto the job that you have, regardless of whether you're doing it like in the same way, which I hope makes sense.
No, it does. It makes a lot of sense. So you're moving like to more strategic, or a role where you're looking at things from more of a bird's eye view.
That's right. Yeah. So we're
Yeah.
like at the 1,000-foot view here. And as much as like I want to be in those spaces, like that would be a total overstep. I wouldn't be empowering my direct reports by like doing those things. And so yeah, you have to shift how those skills are utilized as you move through your career.
That makes a lot of sense. And can you like give us a taste for what work at Calix looks like by, maybe telling me about one of the recent projects that you've been working on?
Yeah, so I started at Calix just 3 months ago. My analogy is like community is a pie, and I'm the owner of that pie. But before I got to Calix, people were encouraged to put their fingers in the pie. And so there's all these people who think that they have ownership over pieces of the pie, but they don't work together. And so there's no like intentional community strategy that takes everybody forward. And so what I've been working on is identifying whose fingers are in the pie. And then my next step is to like take the fingers out of the pie. Because I want to be able to serve the pie to that person. Like I want to be able to have the community strategy and have this beautiful intentional space, like a digital destination where Calix customers come to, discover Calix resources and each other. And I want to be able to serve the pie to the people in a way that it doesn't feel like we're shipping each department separately. It's like one experience. And so that's what I've been starting to work on. The project that's almost wrapping up right now is like a redesign for a customer portal. I can't say too much about it because it's not going to launch till October, but it's in development, and it's this really cool answer to an ask from a group of customers, and we're housing it on the community. So it's like a redesign, and you're having to design new components on the platform, and it's pretty cool.
I love this, and especially love the pie metaphor. I'm gonna be reusing it again in my life later on. I love it.
Yeah, I think one thing that resonates with a lot of community builders is that a lot of people at your business while people may be excited about community, hopefully, they may not understand community or like what it does or how. And so if I were to say, hey, like I just want to control the community strategy, and people are like, I don't get it. Like, let me do my thing. And they don't understand that their thing influences how the strategy is perceived by the customer. And so, yes, this analogy is very helpful when trying to explain to stakeholders across the business what it feels like to have them run their own program in a silo.
So you're actually using this analogy at your work as well.
Oh, absolutely. Yes.
That's amazing. Let's talk about the community now. You recently decided to bring together senior community pros by creating community. So first of all, can you tell me why did you feel the need for this community even when so many other communities for community professionals already existed?
So the community is a community for senior community professionals, and it came out of a year ago. I was laid off from Shopify, and Shopify is a rocket ship, and that's good and bad. Good because you get a ton of experience with like really large enterprise clients, and it's a huge company. But bad because you have, in order to like hold on to the rocket ship, you have to really put your blinders on to things external to Shopify and things that like help Shopify grow. And so I had really only tiptoed into communities outside of Shopify. I had made a couple of connections. I had like taken some courses, and but when I came out the other side of Shopify, I realized that I didn't have any place that I could go and talk to just senior community professionals. I needed to figure out, like, as soon as I was looking for new work, what the community industry looked like now. And I wanted to know from people who are in the roles that I would be looking to be in. And there was no place that I felt comfortable having that conversation. Like, there's no place where I felt that others would feel comfortable to respond to me vulnerably. And that's because like spaces like Community Club and CMX, they're really big. And the community industry is actually quite small. And so if you say anything that could be perceived as negative online, then it could spread like a game of telephone. And so people are really careful about what they say about the industry, especially those who have been around for a bit and people are watching what they say. And so I was reaching out and having these like little coffee chats with folks and, getting them to answer all of my questions and see what the industry is like. So talking to folks who are a little bit more seasoned, it was easier for me to like process what kind of role I wanted, the kinds of job like deliverables I was looking for instead of job titles. Anyway, all this to say that I knew that it wasn't sustainable to start to keep having these like one-on-one conversations. And I also knew that I was going to run out of like the ability to ask someone like, oh, who should I meet with next? And it'd be a different human. And so because I had the time, I was laid off. I was like, this is probably the best time to start something. And so that's kind of where it all came from. I didn't feel safe asking these questions, or I didn't feel people would feel safe at answering my question accurately. And it's now morphed into this thing where we share resources with each other. We help each other. Like say you're about to pitch to your boss for a new headcount. You could showcase like what you have and ask people to look through and poke holes at your presentation, so that by the time you get to your boss, you've actually run it through some other senior community professionals who have probably done it before, and they can give you some help. And so we kind of all learn together just by being vulnerable with each other.
I love this so much. And I love this especially because it shows so much of agency on your part to actually go out and start a community that you required, that solved a problem for you, and then have it be present. And now it's there to solve a lot of problems for a lot of other people like you. And that is such a cool thing to create.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, when I started it, it was November 2022 when I launched it. And I honestly, because I had asked all the people I had met with to that point if they would be interested. Like in those meetings, I was like, hey, is this something that would be interesting to you? And so I honestly thought it would be like me and maybe 5 other people. If I was lucky, everybody who I invited, like 15 to 20 people would come in. And then when I launched, I got 150 applications and I was like, what? I'm not ready. When something like that happens, it validates your hypothesis that this kind of space is needed. But also I honestly did not know that there were this many senior community professionals out in the industry. It's so cool.
Yeah, this is so cool. And what did you think was the reason for this super successful launch? Was it something you said in the launch post, or
I think the success was that I found a hole. I found something that other people felt was needed. What I said about myself in November of last year was that I was kind of an unknown. Like I hadn't spent a lot of time in the industry, talking about the industry, speaking with others until I got laid off in July of last year. And so people didn't necessarily know who I was. So it couldn't have been that people were like, oh, Nikki's doing a thing, let's hop on, because nobody knew who I was at the time. And then it couldn't have been that I said the right thing, because like people are skeptical and senior community professionals just don't have time. And so I think what happened was I said, hey, here's a space for you. And this group of people went, I've never had a space made for me before. And then they were like, oh, I'm curious. And so the reason why I think each cohort continues to garner like 50 to 100 applications is that it's kind of word of mouth now. Like, it's like someone saying, hey, I saw this in the community, and someone being like, the community, what's that? And then them being like, oh, you're not in it, like you should be there. And because I see a lot on applications, like this person referred me, this person told me I should be here, and I have FOMO, like those types of things on applications. So
Yeah. No, I love this. I was actually speaking with somebody else who's been managing developer relations community for 5 to 6 years now, just the other day. And we were talking, and I actually told her that she should join the community. And that was the first time she was hearing about it. I was like, yeah, you should definitely join it. You'd like it. So I'm also somebody who's driving up the FOMO.
I appreciate it.
No, you definitely got it. You've created this place. So let's talk a little bit about the onboarding process, because I know that you have been very intentional about creating this space and making it safe and comfortable for people to speak in. So what does the onboarding process look like? You're onboarding people through applications every 3 months, is that right?
That's right. Yeah. So when we first started, I actually had a rolling application, so which meant that you could apply and your application would be reviewed within 5 days. That was like not sustainable as a project that would, eventually be the project that's the side of my desk. Because at first I had a lot of time and I could devote a lot of time to it. But what I was really, to be honest, there was someone who reached out to me from the community industry, I will not name names, and they basically said to my face that I was going to fail. And the reason they told me I was going to fail was because senior community professionals are hard to wrangle, and that I was going to get a job and I was not going to have the time to focus on it, because I had said, I'm never going to charge for this community. I think like access to information should be free. And I don't want to have someone not be able to come into the community because they can't afford to. And so access to the community will always be free, which means that my time will always be free. And that's a choice that I've made. And I think that is really important to me. But there's a lot of naysayers out there that that kind of model won't work. Not only was I highly aware that I wanted this to be sustainable from the start, but if you tell me I can't do something, I will show you I can do it. That is my stubborn personality. And so it was extra important to me at that point to figure out how to make this a sustainable community. And so as time goes on, you can't review applications every week. There's just no time. And so it was also at the same time as that, one of the first pillars to building the community is to create a safe space. And in order to create a safe space, the people in it have to have psychological safety. And one of the ways that I believe we do create psychological safety is that there's only one entry point where there's new folks. And so for 3 months, the new folks are building relationships with the folks who have been in there for a bit. For 2 months, there's this sweet spot where people feel because there's nobody new coming in, and you feel like you have this safe space. These are the people. There's not going to be some new person I don't know coming in and messing it up. And so it was twofold. It was hey, let's make this sustainable and scalable for the future. But also let's figure out the best ways to create psychological safety. And I hypothesized that this would be one of them. And I think it's working. And by I think it's working, I should really confidently say it's working.
I love it. And what makes you so confidently say that it's working? Is there a lot of people asking questions and answering questions in the community every day?
It's not important that there's activity every day. I think one of the key things that I have to keep telling myself is that this is not a space that's meant to be busy. It's a space that's meant to be valuable. And so we do have people talking in there every day, but the questions and the answers would probably blow your mind if you haven't seen them before. It's here's a really high level question, and then you have 8 people who you would never have access to right away coming in and being like, here's my experience, here's my 2 cents, this is what's happened to me in the past, these are the red flags, these are the things you look out for. And it's like, I just got what would have probably been 2 days research in 2 hours, because these people are just hanging out in this space. And so for me, it's not like, if there was no post today, no sweat. That's not a problem, because nobody needed help today, and that's fine. But when people post, the value is just so high.
This is really interesting to me, because before we started recording, you mentioned that you're also intentional about making sure that the people who are in the space, they're active. So, if somebody has not shown any activity in the last 90 days, you're proactively removing them from the community and they can reapply again. And then on the other hand, you're also not trying to drive up engagement every day. So both of these feel like you have to almost like opposing thoughts, at the same time.
Such a great point. So one of the things that I think is really important about what I just said about, like, it's not a problem if there's no posts today, but it would be an absolute problem if there was no post in 2 weeks. Like, that's everybody, like, there's enough people in here that someone's got to say something. But the thing is that there's also the space created for, like, we have a vented out channel where it's just like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this is happening again. And, or like, this person like screwed me over another time. And so there's like these spaces where people don't have to necessarily ask questions, but they can share things. And so I think 90 days, so like the threshold for being active is 90 days. And 3 months is a really long time. And if you don't get value from this space in 3 months, I think it's important for you to not be in this space. And so, and I think, like, if I had started that project and had like noticed that there was half the community would be gone, I think, like, that's on me. Like, I should be able to create enough value monthly that people are engaging. And so, like, it's both on me and it's on the members as well. But I think they work hand in hand, because I'm not encouraging activity for activity's sake. But if you're not getting value from this space, then I don't want you to feel like you have to be here.
Right. That makes a lot of sense. Is there something else that you do to make sure that the community is healthy and engaged?
Yeah, so I have a quarterly survey as well. There's actually 2 things that come from that, or like, there's the quarterly survey, and then inside of the survey at the very bottom, there is an opportunity for you to raise your hand to help it within the community. And so quarterly, I have this, what I call the dream team. And it's like people who have raised their hand at the bottom of that survey, and quarterly they get, like, the old team gets taken out and the new team gets put in. And these are the people who help build the space. This has been really great, so that I'm not just making a decision for the community. I go into the dream team and I say, hey, I'm thinking about instating a policy where you have to be active in 90 days. Let's discuss. And there's like 20 other senior community builders in that space, and we have a discussion about it, and people poke holes in it, or they say it's a great idea, and we talk about it. And then that way I can ensure that the space is continuously built by each other, and not just like me having ideas and then like screwing it all up, honestly. And then the last thing is that there was like a space I just needed to fill. I knew I needed like a co-lead. And so instead of like head of community or like head of community operations, we just yesterday honestly pivoted to the language of like co-leadership. And so I'm now a co-lead of the space with Jocelyn, and Jocelyn has been helping me for months, like in the background, vetting applications and helping with community strategy. This is like one way that I can ensure that there is someone else who understands that this community is their job.
Yeah, this is so fantastic. Like the thought that you're putting into building the community. I am, just I don't know, astounded actually to
Hmm,
hear you describe with so much passion and so much thoughtfulness about
thank
your
you.
strategy and your process for building it. And honestly, like I feel like you're putting in way too much work in this into this community, and you should be getting some compensation for it.
So one of the questions you'd asked earlier was like, how is it different from the other communities? And one of the things that's important is that you do get something out of, like, the conversation I had with Brianna when I first approached her about co-leading in the space was like, how can this space help you? And then when I approached Jocelyn, how can this space help you? And this space was entirely selfish when I first started it. I needed access to senior community professionals. And as I mentioned, like post-secondary education wasn't for me because I learn differently. And the way that I learn is learning through others, like either others' mistakes or others' wins, or how they ideate. Like if someone says, hey, I have this issue, and then you have like 5 senior community professionals being like, oh, this is how I would work through this. And then you get to see the different ways in which people approach problems. This is like me creating school for myself. And so I benefit greatly, and it should be that way. If someone was building a community and they needed compensation, I think it's absolutely fair to ask for it because everyone's time is valuable. My compensation is the skills and knowledge I get from the space existing.
I love this. I absolutely love this. And I am so happy that you're doing this and creating this space for yourself and for everyone else.
Thank you.
Okay, Nikki, let's take a segue and talk about your career a little more. You said in our call earlier that you started your career in community by being glued to the hip of someone who got your dream role over you. That is amazing. Let's speak about that for a moment. And why don't you start with telling me where you think this idea came from?
Yeah, I think like, let me hop back on some context for the listeners. So back at Shopify, I was actually running a frontline support team. And so like the people who like take your phone calls and you chat into, I was running a team like that. And this role got posted for what was essentially a community manager, and it was for my local city. Shopify started with an online forum, some like virtual, like some virtual engagements, not a lot. This was back in like 2017. And they were looking to create community in person in specific cities around the globe. And so they started with these 3 positions. One of them just happened to be in my hometown. And so I applied for the role. And because I had a small business at the time where I was like helping small business owners grow their businesses. And it was basically what I was doing in my job, but I would get to do it with the resources, like backed by the resources of Shopify. And I was like, this is mind blowing that a role was written that is exactly what I'm trying to accomplish in my like work. And so I applied for the role and I did like everything. I like recorded a video of myself in my city, like, and had a song. It's embarrassing to look back on a little bit because I was like, it's clear how desperately I wanted this job. And I didn't get it. And I was crushed. But then I thought, you know what, like this is a new program and the person who got it is going to need help. Like they don't know what they're doing either because nobody does. Because it was all like internal hires. And so we weren't hiring like community professionals to come in and figure this out. We were just like, let's figure this out internally. And so I didn't really know the person who got it, but she lived in my city and she was doing my dream job. And so I decided I would just reach out and be like, hey, you know what, if you need anything, I saw this as a learning opportunity for myself of like, I clearly didn't get it because she was the better candidate and I need to know why. And I want to know like how I can help her. And through doing that, learn what the role is and if it really is something that I want to pursue. And so that's how the idea came about, was just like, I want to learn and I want to figure out why she got it over me. And it ended up being this like really beautiful relationship where she was at the helm, and she was understanding, like, creating the strategy and paying the vendors and like creating the space for these events. But I was able to come in as a co-worker, helping to bounce ideas off of and vet some ideas, and then also be present at these like in-person events. And I learned a lot from that experience.
This is such a different way of thinking about missed opportunities. Like,
Yeah.
do you feel like you already had this outlook with you in your life, or, where did you get this idea?
So when I was at Shopify, one of the things that they say, they have like internal coaches that you can talk to. They're kind of like mini therapists. And I went to see one because being at Shopify is really hard. And one of the in one of the ways that it's hard is that they hire really high performers. And so you're among people who are incredible. But a lot of us who have been incredible prior to this have never had anybody in our way. And so when I started getting really frustrated about, like, I would apply for jobs internally and not be getting them, I've never had that experience really. Like, I've always been a top candidate for what I apply for. And so the coach likened the experience of coming to Shopify like the experience of those who go to Harvard. Like, you were always top of your class and now you're just normal. Like, now you've just come into this space and you're completely normal. And prior to applying for that community manager role, I applied to, I don't know, like maybe 4 or 5 jobs and didn't get them. But when I didn't get those, I was like, okay, next. Or I cried and then went, okay, next. But when I didn't get this community manager role, I was like, no, like, I want to know more about this. And so I could understand that there was a difference between not getting this job and not getting the others. Like, I've never not just had this mentality in my whole life. It was like, oh, wait, I still want this. And how can I be a part of it, regardless of whether or not I actually have the title? And so that's kind of where the mindset shift came from. It was recognizing that, like, no, wait, I actually really care about this role that I applied for and didn't get. So what should change in my approach after?
So you essentially started looking at rejections by thinking, how could you improve? Like, how can you take steps to make sure you don't get rejected the next time?
Yes, absolutely.
And do you still, use this in your life, this way of thinking?
Yeah. So, I mean, I got laid off from Shopify and I had hundreds of interviews before I found the thing that I wanted to do. I'd had the runway to like wait for the right thing, but you end up like getting rejected a lot, especially when you're like seeking to go to higher title than you've had, but you've like done the work before. You get a lot of rejections, especially in this job market where there is just a ton of talent on the market. And so what I ended up having to do was, instead of like thinking about how I could be better, in this job market, it's more about reassuring yourself of who you are and what your strengths are. So, because the thing is that you likely are good enough for these roles you're getting rejected for. And so what you have to do now in today's job market, in my opinion, is be really confident about what skills you have and not let the job finding process change your perception of yourself.
I think that's really important. And did you ever get scared that the longer time as it has been since you've been laid off, then the longer the gap on your resume would, take for you to justify to the next employer?
So I didn't have that worry. I think like Historically, maybe it would be a problem, but I think like anybody who's hiring right now would understand that the job market has changed in the last like 18 months. There's just been so many layoffs, and because of that, there's so many people who are going to have gaps in their resume from this like time of our lives in history.
Right.
And so I wasn't necessarily worried about the time gap. Also, that was a reason for starting the community was like, hey, let me have something that I'm doing that attaches me, like that keeps me working. And so that I like, I'm not going to get some sort of like moldy brain, which I don't think is possible, but was a little bit worried about that. Just like getting rusty. But what I think is really important is just like, don't let that worry you, because any employer who is like, oh, it's taking you 3 months to get a job and doesn't understand how wild this job market is, just probably isn't a good employer. I'm not going to understand how life works down the line.
No, that's good advice. And I think this job market is crazy, and it's super difficult for so many of the people that we know, and you're constantly hearing about new layoffs and new people who are looking for a job in the market right now. I think this segment will be really helpful for them.
Hope so.
Yeah. Is there any other advice that you've picked up or that you would like to share to people who are looking for senior community roles in this market right now?
One of the things is looking at the job description versus job titles. Because like one of the things we mentioned earlier was that a job description for like it could say community manager, but all of the roles within it are like what you would do as a head of community. And so I think like taking your ego out of it a little bit during the search to look at what the job description actually says, that's going to be really important. And then another is like, if you get into a scenario where you really love the company and you love what you could be doing within that company, to take a stab at maybe pitching a higher role. There was a company who was hiring a more junior role than what I was looking for. And I had applied and basically said that like, I'm really interested in learning more about the role to see if I'm willing to do a junior role. Was very transparent through the process. When it came time for like both sides to kind of decide whether or not we'd move forward, I had said to them, what I would like to do instead is, now that I know more about the business and more about your needs, I would like to counter pitch a different role where it's like, I would be your head of community, because these are the things that I bring to the plate. And it comes back down to knowing what you're good at, knowing what you're capable of bringing to a company, and having some historical context to back that up. And so the email I got back was like, we can't afford that right now, but thank you so much for like, not only asking for what you're worth, but like showing us what things could be possible if we were to open up another role that's like of that higher caliber. And so I think like my advice would be just reminding myself that like I have more to give, and it's okay to say no to opportunities that don't fit. And don't be afraid to ask for what you're worth either. Like if it's the wrong salary, ask for what you're worth. It's really important, especially as senior community professionals, to educate others on what's right and wrong. And so if you see a role that's paying way less than they should be, a polite note of just like, hey, just wanted to let you know that this is a little bit lower, and these are the types of candidates you might get based on that salary expectation. And so I think like being stewards of the industry at this point is really important for senior community professionals.
Right. This is a very unique advice. Apply for roles even if if the role is more junior to what you're expecting, and then know that you have room for negotiation and for educating the potential employer.
Yeah, and I think too, like it's only if you're like really interested in the
Yeah.
company and what they're doing. Say the job title is community manager, but everything you're doing is like a head of community. You could apply for that role, and when it comes to negotiation, you can negotiate a different title. You can say, well, I want to
Right.
be a senior community manager, or I want to be a head of community. And so you can have those conversations at negotiation.
Hmm. That makes a lot of sense. I love that advice, Nikki.
Thanks. I spent a lot of time interviewing.
It
Yeah.
shows, it shows. Your answers are really spot on and very informative.
Thank you.
Next question. What resources have you most recommended to other community professionals?
Yeah, I think this is where my like unique experience with learning comes into play. I think like the first thing is understand how you best learn. So if you are really good in a school setting, there are actual professions that are similar to ours that if you wanted to go to school, you could find programs that would give you similar skills. I think like customer success and marketing are, in my opinion, two of like the leading teams that community manager or community folks roll up into. And I think that if you are really good at those professions, then you can be equally as good at community, dependent if you have like some of the core community skills. But so understand what it is that you are, like how you learn best, and then seek out resources that fit that mold. So for example, CMX has their CMX masterclasses, and they put them on their YouTube channel. And so you can go and rewatch old episodes. And then Better Mode actually has some incredible content of past events. And so for me, I learned from others and how they've run their things and how they do stuff. Like it's not just the content isn't fluffy. It's like really concrete examples of how things are done. And so for me, I love those, but there's also really great blog posts written by our fellow community professionals on the ComStore blog. And so they've done a really good job of highlighting resources. And then the last one I'll say is Common Room. Common Room has an incredible catalog of really actionable blog posts. So it's like not only like here are the components of how we think about community, but like in some cases they'll give you like a worksheet of how to get started. So those are probably like my go-tos of like where to find information.
These are very helpful. I'll be linking to all of them in the show notes for the episode, so listeners can find it over there.
Perfect.
All right, final question, Nikki. Which community builders do you follow online to learn from?
Yeah, there's quite a few. And my mix of how to learn from them is LinkedIn and Twitter. But I really love following Chantel Lewis, is like a consultant in the space, and specifically consults around DEI communities and like how we can build inclusive communities. Jenny Weigel is just, she's also a consultant in this space. Actually, the people I think I will mention are almost all consultants, but works primarily with like enterprise clients, but has some really great, it just has a really great way of presenting information. And then Venia Logan, she has this like educational approach to community that is really technical and is not the way my brain works. And I like following folks who think of things in ways that I don't. And so I would say like Chantel, Jenny, and Venia are probably like my top three. And then I think we have like our go-tos of like the Brian Oblingers of the world and Evan Hamilton and Rosie Sherry. Those folks I think are just generally good folks to follow if you want to have your finger on the pulse.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll be linking to all of their profiles as well in the show notes.
Sweet.
All right, Nikki. This has been a fantastic interview. It was so cool chatting with you and hearing about all your experiences, all the advice, amazing advice that you had to give today. Thank you so much for joining me on this podcast.
Thank you so much. This was like a really fun conversation, and there's a couple of questions you asked me that I'm going to probably journal about tonight. So like, thank you so much for your really thoughtful questions.